How are people buying homes today in this market? Today we're going to talk a little bit about that, highlight this townhome project that we're doing. But first, let me introduce my good friend, Holly Sterling.
Hey, Matt.
So Holly and I, we're here in Glendale right now, about 1st South, 8th West in Salt Lake. And we were thinking back about 23 years ago to this day. Holly and I were hanging out at a new home development down the road where I was the sales agent and she'd qualify the buyers, get them financing, get them closed. So 23 years later, we're back here doing it again.
And not far. It's awesome.
And not far. It's very close. But before we start, this little rendering is our architect, Jared, who's awesome. He put this together. It's a 3D printed rendering. And the reason I wanted to point this out is we talk about this a lot in our videos, is beginning with the end in mind. When we started this project, this is what we envisioned we'd end up with. And voila, this is what we end up with. So begin with the end in mind, have a plan before you start, and odds are it'll turn out better than if you didn't. Maybe not always perfect, right? Okay, so we're here at this new townhome project. We are going to start listing these units. We have 10 units in here. We're going to start listing these units here in the next couple weeks. And right now it's the end of October 2023. Holly, give us a really quick background of how rates have changed, which is going to be obvious to everybody over the last year and a half.
Well, we've obviously been dealing with the inflation issues, and the Fed and their ability to try to curb that has been raising interest rates. So we have seen a little uptick in the rate market, but what we've also seen is we've started to see prices soften just a little bit. And even if not soften, we're not in that market where people are having to ask $80,000 above list or pay over and above. So it's actually a really great time to buy. And a lot of first-time home buyers that were sitting on the fence because they didn't have that extra money to bring in over and above the asking price, they're back in the market now.
So let's rip the Band-Aid off. Where are rates in general at today?
We're sitting on average on a conventional loan right around 8%, give or take, depending on credit. Your government loans, your FHA, VI, are in the high 7s. So, I mean, they're not the worst they've ever been by a long shot.
So 23 years ago, we were just talking about when we first met and got together and worked together. Where were rates at about 23 years ago?
In the mid-8s, mid to high 8s. In fact, we were in the 9s. We were really stoked when we got something in the 8% range. So
now, obviously, an 8% rate when real estate values are lower is a different payment. But the reality is, and we were talking about this before, the effect that it has on your pocketbook, it's not a good one, but it's pretty similar to what it was.
It is. When we look at what incomes were, average incomes were back then to what they are today, we take purchase prices and loan amounts and payments, we're about the same ratio of payment to income as we were back then. So we're in a very similar market in a lot of ways, just all the numbers are higher, but all the numbers are higher.
All the numbers are higher.
Right.
And the coulda, shoulda, wouldas don't help anymore because no one has a time machine. We can't go back in time 2 years ago and lock everybody in at a 2.5% rate. So it is what we're dealing with right now. And the other problem that we're dealing with right now, at least in Salt Lake for sure, and I think throughout the country, is we have really, really low inventory and pretty high demand.
Right.
So what that's doing, in my opinion, is it's keeping prices high or at where they were.
Right.
And it's not bringing them down because the demand is still higher than the supply. Inventory's low. And so, Holly, tell me if you agree with this.
Yeah.
I would say, 2 years ago, there were 10 buyers that could buy a house.
Right.
Probably 8 could buy.
Right.
Now there's maybe 2 that can buy.
Absolutely.
However, there's still more houses than there are for the 2 people.
Right.
Right? So that's keeping prices steady. So the point of this video is, with home prices not collapsing like people have thought they would, let's just assume they're going to stay steady, because I think they will stay steady for the supply and demand. There's not a lot of data to show that
there's any chance of a crash.
So then how do you win today if you want to buy a house? And that's what we're going to kind of talk about for the next little bit.
Right. There's plenty of people out buying right now. I have first-time home buyers galore right now because they all got pushed out of the market.
How many people are going to close this month on purchases at these high rates?
I have 4.
Yeah.
4, and they're all doing 100% financing.
Yeah.
They're putting nothing down, which was a market you couldn't be in a year and a half ago.
Yep.
If you came into the door with 0 down, you didn't have that extra $80,000 above appraised value to pay, you're out.
Right.
Right now we have sellers willing to pay some closing costs. We have prices pretty steady, and we have people being able to qualify. Sometimes it's qualifying with another family member. Sometimes it's qualifying with a friend. there's creative ways to get it done. If you don't qualify by yourself, there's other ways to do it.
And it's not unlike when we were in the model home 23 years ago.
Absolutely.
The concept that we didn't need to hear over the last few years because rates were so low, 3-2-1 buy down, 2-1 buy down, an ARM. Those are all products coming back.
We did those on every deal.
We did them on every single deal.
Yeah, that's where we are again.
And so a lot of you that are watching this, you're dealing with this, you know it. But if you're new looking into the game, let's go over really quick. So for example, we're going to sell these townhomes for about $550,000 per unit.
Right.
Talk to us about different loan programs that might work for a buyer buying either as a primer or a first-time homeowner or even a move-up buyer.
Okay. So if you're a first-time home buyer, there's always extra programs out there with 100% financing being one of them. You don't need a down payment. That's the one thing I can't say enough. You don't have to have a down payment to buy a house. So that's a great option for a first-time home buyer. If you have a small down payment, 3.5% down, FHA, these would qualify for an FHA loan. So that's a really great option. Rates on FHA loans are a little bit lower right now. And if you're a move-up buyer and you have cash to bring to the table, a regular conventional loan's great too. But if you happen to be a self-employed person who doesn't show a lot of income on your tax returns and you have a great 1099 or you have bank statements that show great deposits, we have ways of doing loans for that too with a nice down payment. Usually requires about 20% down on those type, but we have all kinds of alternative financing solutions that we had back in the day that went away and have now come back in a little bit different form.
So how does a 2-1 buy down in simple terms work?
So a 2-1 buy down buys your interest rate down the first year 2% over what you're locked at. So if we locked you today at an 8% interest rate, your first year would be at 6%.
And we were doing the math before. What would that possibly on average save a homeowner in monthly payment for that first year?
So great example. We ran one of these townhouses at your price point at $550, and it was about a $700 a month savings that first year. So the second year, you would be at 1% lower interest rate than what you will be locked at. So you'd be at 7% in this scenario, right? But the hope is that we see interest rates come down. Next year is an election year, and typically we do see rates soften in election years. And we've had inflated interest rates for a hot minute. So we really anticipate, we're hoping, I don't have the crystal ball, but we really think rates might come down, and that would be a great opportunity to refinance.
And fix it in at relatively low cost on the refinance with no prepayment penalty to do it.
No prepayment penalties, absolutely. Right, and any of that money we use for the buy down goes into an escrow account. So if you happen to refinance a year in, you're going to get that money back.
You're going to get that money back. So
that's cash.
I mean, this isn't gambling. That's not whatever. But there's a little bit of a calculated play here to get in a lower rate and maybe keep that lower rate, because when rates go down,
or ease yourself into the payment.
If
you're coming off of renting and maybe your payment was a little bit lower than it would be buying, but now you have a tax benefit you didn't have before, you're going to start building equity, which you weren't doing before. So the 2-1 buy down is a great way to ease you in and hopefully get an opportunity to refinance.
So the hope of this video is, one, kind of highlight Holly, show our townhome project, but also there are ways to win and people are buying every day. I was talking with someone the other day that, I mean, let's be honest, it's harder to get things done these days. I feel like you're running through mud and not really going anywhere, but you can still win. You can still buy houses.
Absolutely.
And you know, I'm reminded, I look at the MLS. I was doing this with an agent the other day on the phone. It was something like, you know, we looked at like a week's worth of daily snapshots of listing. There was almost as many listings as there were under contract listings. So somebody is out there buying. If you're a seller, someone's out there buying. Why isn't it your house? And if you're a buyer, yeah, if you can afford to wait, maybe you do wait and gamble to see if the price, but I don't think prices are, I could be wrong. Prices probably won't go down. Rates might get lower, but you could do a 2-1 buy down now and get the same rate.
The minute rates come down,
it's going to be
people are going to jump off the fence and start to buy. And all those sellers that are holding on to their house because they don't want a higher rate than what they have now, they're going to come off the fence too. So the minute rates come down, we're going to be in a completely different market. I think this is the opportunity for buyers to get in who haven't.
Then the demand will surge. And just like we've experienced over the last few years, it's supply and demand. Rates go down, demand's still there, prices go up.
With the influx of people moving into the state as well, with our supply shortage, all that's going to do is give them an opportunity to get out of renting. So I really think we've got a lot of buyers sitting on the fence that have an opportunity right now to take advantage before things change.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, in 23 years from now, Holly, what model home will we be sitting at then?
It's going to be something totally
I hope right around here.
I hope it's something that hovers off the ground.
There we
and
go.
It's a floating house.
We'll be in the meta viewers. So
That's
anyway,
right.
thanks for watching. Hopefully this is helpful, and we'll talk to you next time.